Gain clear, actionable intelligence from Corelight's network defense experts. Corelight Defenders translates complex cybersecurity detection challenges into concise, practical episodes designed to support faster, smarter decision-making across modern security teams.
Welcome to Corelight Defenders. I'm Richard Bejtlich, strategist and author in residence at Corelight. In each episode, we explore insights from the front lines of NDR, network detection and response. And today I'm speaking with David Burkett, our cloud security researcher at Corelight. Welcome, David.
Hey, glad to be on.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. If anyone knows my background, they'll know I am a network security type person. I have spent many years looking at traffic in a network, but I am fascinated by this topic of cloud security and how network approaches can work in the cloud. And I'm not too proud to admit, several years ago, I read a book about cloud security and how the cloud was going to take care of itself, and it had all these native features, and I believed it. I was like, okay, I don't have to worry about this network stuff in the cloud anymore. But here we are years later, and obviously we're talking from the Corelight perspective. We have a lot of interest in cloud security for a network-centric product. So can you maybe just give me a little bit of background, a little bit of understanding, like why is network traffic so important in a cloud security context?
A lot of the same principles that are going to apply on premises are going to apply to the cloud. And there's some common attacks going around right now that blind EDR tools. And I thought it would be prudent to write something up about how that same kind of tactic applies to actually cloud native technologies. So,
yes. So I will link the blog post that you're referring to. I'll put that in the show notes so people can take a look at it. Let's say you accept the premise that there is a role for monitoring in the cloud. What is it that we're actually monitoring? I understand we do have a capability. We're building a capability to look at things like VPC flow logs and so forth. But if I'm looking at more from just a network traffic perspective, what is it I'm actually looking at?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, there's a ton of different things. So whenever you're in AWS specifically, one of the things that they do that's really nice is they tag all of their internal traffic. So like if you're using EKS, the managed Kubernetes service, they tag with the TLS certificates what that service is. So you can kind of get a good idea of a baseline of like what your different tools are communicating with whenever it comes to the different like cloud APIs and different services behind the scenes. But not only that, you can also get a good idea of just, your traditional, like anything that you think you might need on-prem is really going to apply to the cloud. So whatever your containers are going to be doing, if you have any EC2 instances, basically everything that is going to be traditional type infrastructure that you can get a PCAP on is what we're going to be monitoring.
So are people looking at the traffic and building a baseline and saying, this is what it looks like? Maybe I don't understand everything that's there, but this is what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And then if something new happens, they pay closer attention to that and say, okay, this could be an indicator of a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that's actually pretty useful about cloud workloads, so despite them being fairly elastic whenever they scale, the way that they work, like so the ports that they use and that kind of a thing, is actually fairly static. Whenever you're using things like containers, Kubernetes, ideally, in a perfect world, you're going to have those be immutable whenever they're deployed. You're not going to have anything really changing in production. So it makes it great for baselining. And whenever you start looking or seeing any kind of drift from that baseline, you know that you have something interesting probably going on. But not only that, one of the things that is weirdly the most common is whenever you have a supply chain attack where some really common package or tool or something gets compromised, maybe in a container. For whatever reason, attackers love to just use coin miners, and those always have to beacon out to the mining pool just in the way that they kind of work. It's really useful to be able to see what kind of more detailed network traffic they have, be able to catch things like the TLS certificates if they're even encrypting it.
Okay, so that I think that highlights two aspects of this that are interesting. One is you could be looking at traffic in the cloud itself among your different workloads, or sorry, I'm not up to speed with like what
Mm.
things are called or whatever, but within the cloud, there are the different pieces talking to each other. But
Yep.
then it sounds like you also have the ability, or you would want the ability, make sure you have this ability to watch ingress and egress, because as like you said, if there's some type of C2 or whatever going on that's outside of, well, by definition, C2 would be outside of your profile, but you could possibly see traffic that is outside of the use profile. Is that right?
Whenever you have a Kubernetes in your Kubernetes clusters, you're going to have things like your workloads, your containers that run in them. Then you're going to have the nodes. So the nodes are going to be basically the servers that the containers run on. And with the current kind of setup that we have, we currently see the node kind of level visibility. But we do partner with groups like Orca and have some cloud enrichment kind of tools to get deeper down into seeing the individual containers. It's just the same visibility that you would have if it was an on-prem Kubernetes server. So it's not like you have any kind of less visibility in the cloud. But basically, you get all of that traffic coming in and out of the containers just as you would if it was just like an on-prem server. So
Over the last few years, there's been issues with looking at providers and trying to figure out if they give you a tap into network traffic. Are we at the point now where pretty much, the big providers all give you equivalent capabilities, or are we still waiting on some to add that?
yeah, some are definitely better than others, but at this point, I think all three, especially of the big major cloud providers, have at least some basic capability, and they seem to actually also be realizing that this is where I guess the market is moving in cloud security. So they're all actually maturing and pushing out new stuff. I think I actually saw a recent announcement from Google that they were expanding some of their network security stuff with Corelight being one of the offerings. I think all of the cloud providers are working to mature and basically make that network traffic even more available, more accessible than it has been. So that seems to be a good thing to see.
One of the issues they had with the cloud native offering was that maybe the visibility wasn't there, or if there were logs of any type, sometimes there was a delay, or the quality wasn't up to the level that they could use to detect and respond. Are those concerns still around in 2025?
Yeah, unfortunately so. I've seen some reports where there's been instances of, I believe it was Azure, was just either not logging or the logs were delayed by a significant time period for whatever reason. That seems to be not very common, but something that can potentially happen. But I would say that that's probably more the exception these days, but it is still one of the things that I think is still going to be the case is the amount of API calls and different services that are added to different cloud providers makes a lot of the I guess logs difficult to understand for analysts. So one of the I guess kind of benefits of doing a lot of the network security monitoring stuff is you're going to be more familiar with what you're looking at. As if you're doing network security monitoring on prem, your analysts are going to know what the logs are and how they work and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Sometimes people underestimate the ability of an analyst to pivot among different log sources. And if you have all of the data in a format that they're already familiar with, even if it's coming from a different location, you're able to pick out patterns or just know where things are and work with it. Never mind your tool chain, not having to adjust it to deal with a different type of log format or fidelity or whatever. So yeah, that's a really interesting point too.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to think about like a typical cloud attack chain, so for example, one of the common ones right now are info stealers. So people will Google things like putty, whatever, get a backdoored version, have their credentials compromised, or maybe just the attacker on their machine steals their session tokens, and whatever, however they do, gain access to then your cloud environment. Having that kind of same network data allows you to be able to kind of quickly correlate and see if they're communicating to some of that same infrastructure that they use to breach you. A lot of times it's not going to be, obviously the same, but it can be a real quick way to pivot to your cloud network to see if you have any kind of compromises from that.
Yeah. Are there any developments for network security monitoring in the cloud that we should be paying attention to? Like any cool things that are coming, or, I mean, obviously we're not going to leak product details or anything, but any sorts of approaches perhaps, or that sort of development that you're interested in?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things. I think that we sit in kind of a unique position. So one of the things that again I kind of talked about in the blog post is there's a concept of whenever you get on uh, control of a device, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, you gain admin access. You're going to have the capability to do things like disable security monitoring tooling, add firewall rules so it maybe can't communicate out to its SaaS platform. That all applies the same as on-prem as it does in the cloud. So if you have a Kubernetes workload or a cluster, for example, that maybe has a poor misconfiguration or maybe even just gets a supply chain compromise with a container running elevated privileges, that can cause a lot of the same problems as it would have, it happened on an on-prem just instance. So, one of the things that's really interesting is, at least in my mind, is we sit in a unique spot to where we're collecting that network traffic, on from the actual like taps in the cloud, where there's a lot of I guess you could say network security monitoring tools, which are great by the way. They're eBPF based, but they are host based, so they have that kind of limitation, and it's interesting to try and do research around a lot of the traffic that we see in just from like that tapped perspective, because there's not a lot out there on what's being done. So that's one kind of piece that's interesting to me. But some of the stuff that's coming in the future that's just kind of cool is we're doing a lot with our anomaly detection engine. So like I mentioned, the a lot of the workloads in the cloud are fairly static. So once you get an idea of what kind of services that they're using, the ports, that kind of a thing, those become fairly reliable, especially in the kind of cloud environments. One of the things that I'm actually working on, so whenever you're deploying or working in a containerized environment, such as like EKS or GKE, one of the other kind of environments, because you're going to have your containers be immutable, all that stuff. You're not going to be troubleshooting them in production. So you shouldn't really be seeing administration tools, so like SSH, RDP, VNC, that sort of thing. That can be an indication of compromise. So, like I mentioned earlier, we have ways to go through and identify what sort of traffic is EKS traffic, for example, and then we can go through and start profiling that and look for things that might be a container-to-container SSH session, which might be the way an application works, but those will be easy to go through and kind of identify what's legitimate, what's not, because you're typically going to have either your orchestration tools like your Ansible or whatever, or the application itself is going to be using SSH for some sort of a reason. So those are going to be kind of the exception. And then outside of that, just seeing some of that activity, be signs of potential compromise. And yeah, we just have a lot of cool stuff coming up on the cloud front.
I had heard of, and because of your blog post, I learned a little bit about using tools to instrument the workloads themselves. But if you're adding it, it means an intruder can either modify it or remove it. So it's kind of nice to have this removed capability that is watching. And lots of people will say, well, if it's encrypted or, I don't get full details. But if you're in a situation where that's all you've got. That for me, that's the mejor que nada aspect of security. Like it's better than nothing. I will take that any day. In addition to all the other things that you could do with it otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, the because the cloud workloads are traditionally fairly static in how they run, baselining is actually really, really powerful for detection in the cloud. The way that a lot of the host-based tools work is they just looked for drift. Are the container images changing from when they were first deployed? That actually is essentially what you can do at the network level as well. Is that network pattern changing from once the host is deployed? I wouldn't even assume that a lot of the attackers are using encrypted traffic. I was actually just reading before we got on the call a blog post, the most recent report on the DFIR reports site. I want to say it was around a Lockbit ransomware deployment. They pulled the file down in the clear, or at least one of the payloads. So,
I've always said unless the intruder is physically co-located with the asset, you've got a chance using the network. Now, they can always get creative and use a satellite phone or something. And if they're doing that now, it's really interesting. David, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I learned a ton about cloud security with this one. We'll probably have you back because this is an area that's only changing and introducing new issues that we can address. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, happy to be here. And thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Network Defenders podcast, sponsored by Corelight. We will see you on the network.
You've been listening to Corelight Defenders. To stay informed with expert intelligence on today's cybersecurity challenges, please subscribe to ensure you never miss an episode. We'll see you on the network.